let's rank every single launch title developed by Nintendo. Kind of hard for me to do this objectively because some of these games I've played for endless hours and other games I've played for 2 minutes. But it's not like anybody here is going to win an award for this, so let's just have some fun. I'm going to take into account how fun the game is, the kind of impact it's had on the gaming world, and of course, naturally, my own personal bias. Without further ado, let's get started. I think it's important to weigh how you feel while playing games, and the actual impact it has on you can determine how much you love the game. Many titles may not have the best gameplay, but they have a lasting impact on individuals that's difficult to put into words. For example, Mario's Tennis gives you a headache. It's not terrible. I mean, it's pretty bare bones, but it's just Mario Tennis at the end of the day. And I could maybe forgive that except for the fact that if I was playing a Virtual Boy, I would need a Tylenol. And in the same vein, next up would be Tellero Boxer. I don't know why I'm ranking this over Mario Tennis. I think objectively I would have more fun playing Mario's Tennis than this one. But Tellero Boxer is a cool name. Plus it's got that first-person VR fighting thing to it, which I think is way ahead of its time. But unfortunately, each punch from the enemy is felt in real life through the throb of a migraine. Okay, now we can get to the real games. 1, 2, switch. Yeah. Okay, now we can get to the real games. Stack Up. So I actually do have quite a few memories playing this one, but I was very young at the time, and even back then when I played it, it was outdated technology. I think the whole idea of using Rob to play this was novel, but yeah, kids in the 80s had it good. And this game is not really the reason why. Gyromite is a little bit better. You still have to use Rob in this instance, but at least it feels like a game with a little bit more progression in it. But it's a bare bones game with a gimmicky control style, so it's gonna stay pretty low. Next up would be Baseball on Game Boy. And I think Baseball on Game Boy is the worst of both the baseball franchise as well as the Game Boy franchise. The lack of color makes it hard to see, the bare bones gameplay makes it uninteresting, and baseball itself is not that fun. Seriously, it's like an activity. Can you even consider it a sport? You know what? Now that I'm on this hate tirade, the next up is Baseball for the NES. Yeah, it does a lot better than the Game Boy one because you can actually see what you're doing, but it's still baseball, and it's still bare bones. Although, credit where it's due, I think there is a charm to the art here, even if it is offensively simple in the lens of a modern gamer. Next up is going to be Nintendogs and Cats, and I'm only doing that because I don't like cats. I am a dog person. So out of spite, I am ranking it this low. Next up at 35, we're going to go with Tennis for the NES. I like tennis, both in real life and in video game form. And I think the fact that you could actually track the ball makes the NES one at least playable today, but there are so many other ways to play it that are more enjoyable. And just after that, we're going to throw in Tennis Game Boy. It plays about as well as the other one, but I like the character models here more. And moving on from there is another Game Boy title. We're going to rank Alleyway down here. I don't even think this is that bad, but I mean, like, if you're going to pick up a game to play on a short car ride, don't buy Alleyway, buy Tetris. And moving on from that, we're going to put Donkey Kong Jr. Math over here. This game actually sucks, but I like Donkey Kong Jr. and I like Math, so I moved it up a little bit on the list. And up next on the list is Hogan's Alley. I got a lot of nostalgia for the on-screen targets more than anything else, but it is a very simple tech demo game, quick shot with the light gun. It's cool, but not cool enough. And sitting just above Hogan's Alley is Wild Gunman. Wild Gunman, I think, is the earliest memory I have of a video game. I don't know that I played it, I think I just watched my sisters play it, but at the end of the day, it is a pretty simple game. You just use your light gun, shoot down the bad guy, and move on. And I guess since we're doing the light gun stuff, next up would be Duck Hunt. Very cool, very impactful. If you can get your hands on a light gun, it's still fun to this day, but I don't know that I can rank it higher than any of the upcoming games on this list. Now, as far as this next one is concerned, I feel like I might be being a little bit unfair, but I never really understood the hype of Pilot Wings. I mean, I guess the visuals were cool, but the entire premise of the game was just landing. There just isn't enough depth in this one to rank it any higher, not in the gameplay, nor in the visuals. Next up is a bland version of Pinball. I mean, it is pinball, so it's hard to make it exciting, although I guess Pokemon Pinball did figure that out. But over here, it's just very simple. I guess if you're playing 2 players, it is a little bit more fun, but I think there are better ways to enjoy yourself on the NES. For example, you could be playing Ice Climbers. Now, Ice Climbers got that issue where you jump and you can't really change your direction in the air. If you ever played the old school Mario Bros. Arcade, they had kind of the same problem. But I think there is a lot of fun to be had at Ice Climbers, especially if you're playing 2 players, so while it could be much better, it still earned this ranking on my list. And that is in part because I enjoy the music. And next up on the list is Clu Clu Land. This feels like one of those games you'd be playing on an old computer in the library in the 90s. You spin around these dots and collect treasure and try and avoid the spiky dudes. It's like a bootleg version of Pac-Man. Well, it's actually nothing like Pac-Man, but the same vibes. And just after that, we have a beat 'em up, Kung Fu for the NES. I don't know, this one's charming to me. The backdrop, the character sprites, and especially the sound design on it. I mean, it is a very simple beat 'em up, and you're really only playing on like a third of the screen because the top part is a scoreboard and the bottom part is visuals. But it's fun for a quick little beat 'em up fest. And next up is Golf on the NES. I'll be honest, it's only up this high on the list because I forgot to mention it earlier, but in fairness, I think this one has aged better than the other sports, largely due to the simplicity of the sport itself. Plus, I like the screen on the side that makes the game a little bit more personable. So, I'm not that upset that I ranked it this high. It's still not the highest ranking NES game though, because next up we have Excitebike. I feel like the reputation of this game is actually larger than the game itself. Don't get me wrong, it's still fun to pick up to this day, and you could actually make your own tracks, which was pretty cool. Not to mention, there was a challenge in figuring out how to keep your momentum as you rode. All in all, it is still alright to revisit, but only for a few minutes. And following that is Mach Rider, which I think is a lot more interesting than Excitebike. You're still on a dirt bike, but this time you actually have to shoot down alien invaders. Quite frankly, if it wasn't for the muddied look that this game has, I feel like it would be on a console stronger than the NES. The gameplay is very impressive for the time. And next up is a game that I think aged pretty well, Wrecking Crew. I revisited this one a few years ago and was surprised at how much I enjoyed it, and then I ended up playing Wrecking Crew 98 and I enjoyed that one even more. I actually almost made a video on it around the time that the Mario movie came out, since Sebastian Maniscalco was going to be playing Foreman Spike, but I think I just got too busy to make it and moved on. So if you guys want, maybe I can do a Wrecking Crew retrospective. Either way, this is a fun one to play 2 players. And moving on from that, we have the Game & Watch Gallery 2. It's a fun little mishmash of classic Game & Watch games, and I'd be lying if I didn't admit that it's not the charm of this game that's really appealing to me. But similar to many other games this high on the list, it's fun to revisit even today. The next up is Steel Divers, and this one is weirdly more enjoyable than you'd think it would be. I know the visuals are completely barren by today's standards, and maybe the idea that it's fully controlled by the touchscreen is no longer as appealing as it was than when the game launched, although even by 2011 that was probably not that appealing. But I think you'd be surprised how much fun you could have with it if you gave it a shot. I was about to say that all of the remaining ones are some of the largest in the industry, but then I remembered that Pilotwings 64 still exists. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's much better than the SNES version, but at the end of the day, it's still just a flight simulator, which I know is all the rave now, but now it's the rave because they're so much more realistic. I mean, it's cute and whatever, but if you were buying a Nintendo 64, you should have probably just stuck with Mario 64 and just played that for the rest of your life. That's what I did. So next up is Tetris DX. You could probably argue that this one deserves to be higher, considering that the original Tetris is going to be higher on this list. But I think when you factor in the impact of the title itself, Tetris DX sitting over here, considering everything it's following up, makes sense. It's just Tetris in color. Now, I would argue that the final 15 are some of the most difficult to rank. And it's one of those situations where really any of these could be a top 5 game, and I don't know that I would necessarily argue with you that much. So even though I have a lot of fond memories with this title, primarily starting off playing with the demo, coming in at number 15 will be Metroid Prime Hunters. The controls are okay, but I argue it would need a lot of work. But I think a lot of people have nostalgia for this one just because of when it came out and which console it came out on. Either way, seeing a Metroid game on a handheld device was pretty cool for 2004. Next up is once again a game that I think is really fun, but I don't know if I can justify moving it any higher up the list. Nintendo Land on the Wii U. This was a showcase for how fun asymmetrical multiplayer could actually be, and unfortunately would be something that we wouldn't see capitalized on the Nintendo Wii U. Not to the extent many of us had hoped for anyway. With its fun modes and charming little cameos spread throughout, it makes for a memorable adventure, and one of the games that you must have if you get a Wii U. The next game is Super Mario Land. It definitely does not deserve to be as low as I placed it, but when you consider you can probably get through this game in about 30 or 40 minutes, and the fact that it was completely overshadowed by its sequel, it's kinda hard to place it any higher. I think it was really cool that this was the first instance that it felt like Mario could actually work in handheld, but as the years went on, what a handheld Mario could do evolved drastically, and it happened as quickly as its sequel. And with that same thought, I'm gonna play Super Mario Advance next. This version of Super Mario Bros. 2 is actually my favorite version of Super Mario Bros. 2. And that's primarily because it added the red coin collectibles, which I feel like made the game a lot more fun than its original counterpart, as well as the Mario All-Stars version. But typically speaking, with all of these classic Mario Brothers games, anyone that you pick up should be a lot of fun. Check out my retrospective video. Next on my list would be Super Mario Bros. U. You could make an argument that this is objectively one of the more fleshed out games on this list, and it might have the best polish, and because it is not that old, it probably aged very well. But unfortunately, when this came out, there was a lot of disappointment because people expected a lot more. So while I still think this is definitely a game worth picking up, be it on the Wii U or on the Switch in the deluxe version, especially if you play the Super Luigi U, I still don't think that I can rank it any higher than where I'm placing it on this list. Alright, here we go, top 10. I'll be honest, I wanted to move this one up higher on the list because of how much I love it, but I think putting F-Zero here at number 10 makes sense. The Mode 7 graphics, the crazy good music, the actual feel of the high-speed intensity makes this one worth visiting and replaying even in a world where F-Zero 99 exists. You would be surprised how much effort you'd have to put into this one to fully complete it. And following that would be Luigi's Mansion. I'll be honest, I kind of wanted to put F-Zero above this one, but I felt like that would be a little harsh. I actually don't know that I played Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube. I ended up picking up a used copy on the 3DS for pretty cheap many years later, but I loved it so much I ended up playing Dark Moon. And then after that, I decided to get number 3 on the Switch. It's a phenomenal series, and really I think its only downfall was that it was the launch title on the GameCube. People were expecting a 3D Mario, and they got Luigi playing Ghostbuster. Up next is Twilight Princess. Now, I know most people would probably place this a lot higher than I am, and it might actually deserve to be higher up there. This was actually the first Legend of Zelda game that I played, surprisingly enough. I grew up in a big family, we were much more multiplayer focused, with the only exception primarily being Mario. In a Mario game, if you lose a life, you can trade the controller. With the Zelda games, you kinda gotta play it by yourself. When the Wii came out, my friend actually bought it, and he asked me to play Twilight Princess before him because he thought it would convince me to become a Zelda fan. And yeah, it worked. I love Zelda now. I'm still much more of a Mario guy, and that's primarily because of how accessible Mario games are. I feel like whenever I play a Zelda game, whether it's a 3D one or a top-down 2D version, I have to sit there and clear my schedule for the next month, but the Zelda experience is a lot more impactful. I really like Twilight Princess, I just like the games that are coming up on the list a lot more. And I feel like they were probably more impactful to their respective series. And to immediately prove my bias, next up is Mario 64 DS. The idea of playing Mario 64 on handheld, the idea of Reggie Fils-Aimé holding up the DS to the camera, like just the fact that you were about to be playing 3D titles on the go was amazing. Now, unfortunately, what actually happened was the DS just kind of became the Game Boy Advance advanced, in that so many developers decided to just stick with 2D games, but I don't really blame them because there was no analog stick, so it was kind of hard to design with a D-pad. Either way, I love 64 DS. I've spent most of my life bouncing back and forth between this one and the original 64 version, but I cannot deny that the 64 version has a longer lasting and stronger legacy. And coming in at number 6 is Tetris. With the impact of this title alone, you could probably argue that it would be number 1. But I feel like we are so far removed away from the launch of Tetris that it's okay to place it outside of the top 5. I have no doubt in my mind with the impact that this game has had that if it was released today as a launch title for the Nintendo Switch 2, they would give it an $80 price tag, and Doug Bowser would justify it by saying that the longevity would make the game worth it. And next up on my list is Wii Sports. Wii Sports basically single-handedly took Nintendo from being third place to first place. Wii Sports made grandmothers play video games. Wii Sports broke everybody's TV, and Wii Sports is actually still fun to this day if you got a Wii hanging around you. Seriously, give it a shot if it's been a while. I would argue this is still one of the best games to play with children, or heck, even with adults if you're just looking for a good time. The simplicity of the controls makes it so much more enjoyable. I'm being serious. Ever since the Wii Motion Plus, you had to kind of put a little bit more effort in which angle your wrist was and how you slice the controller through. It makes a lot of these motion control games not as fun as they were on the Wii, where you can just kind of focus on when you flick your controller versus how you flick it. And I think for many that might be more fun, but when you're playing with casual gamers that are just standing around and looking to have a good time, yeah, it's Wii Sports. I take out my Wii all the time and we still have a lot of fun with it, especially at a regular party with non-gamers. Yeah, so to the surprise of nobody, 3 out of the last 4 are Mario games, and at number 4, I'm going to place Super Mario Bros. Probably the most important Mario game to ever be released, maybe even arguably the most important video game to be released. And you could tell me that it should be higher than Super Mario World, and I would probably yield to that. I think there's legitimately nothing I could say about this game that hasn't already been said, and if you want to hear more about my thoughts on it, yeah, watch that classic Mario video. And likewise with the next game on the list of Super Mario World, same idea. You want to hear my thoughts on it? Watch that classic video. This is easily my favorite game of all time, tied with Super Mario 64. Everybody, and I mean everybody that I know has played Super Mario World, no matter what age they were born in. Well, actually, I don't know if I can still say that, but everybody over the age of like 15-ish has played Super Mario World. Considering most of my friend group is a mixture of Sony fanboys and Nintendo fanboys, the common denominator we all had was we all played Super Nintendo. And if you played Super Nintendo, you played Super Mario World. So while I think that amongst the Mario community, there's an argument for Super Mario Bros. 3, which is not even on this list, but I'm mentioning it, I think across the gaming world as a whole, most people will remember fondly Super Mario World as their nostalgic Mario game. At least that's what it seems like to me. And even if that's not true compared to Mario 3, I still think the legacy of Super Mario World surpasses at least Super Mario Bros. 1, and that's why I placed it slightly higher on this list. Yet, Super Mario 64 is my favorite game of all time. Back in December, I decided to start uploading daily videos on Super Mario 64. I went through every single stage and every single star. That series did so well that I just kept going daily for the next few months and covered every game up until Super Mario Galaxy 2, which I'm currently running through, although I have paused it for the past month, partially because I've been feeling burnt out, but also because my hard drive bugged out so I lost a lot of footage and I just haven't found the motivation to replay some of the levels. Either way, Mario 64 is phenomenal. Like I said, between this one and Super Mario World, they are probably the two games that I've played the most in my life, and I've played every version of both of those games multiple times. I could go on and on about this game, but I already did, and if you want to kill 3.5 hours, here's the compilation video of my retrospective series from December. Coming in at number 1 is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, I will be real with y'all, I contemplated putting this one below Mario 64 and Super Mario World, but honestly, it just didn't feel right. I liked Mario Odyssey more than this game, but Mario Odyssey was not a launch title. But that being said, Breath of the Wild was the most fun I ever had playing a 3D Zelda game. I enjoyed it more than Ocarina of Time, I enjoyed it more than Twilight Princess, Majora's Mask, and Wind Waker. I haven't even finished all of those games I just mentioned, but I did put a lot of hours into them, and none of them really captured me the way Breath of the Wild did. I liked Breath of the Wild so much that when I played Tears of the Kingdom, I liked it even more because it was basically more Breath of the Wild. Looking back now, I always scoff because so many people laugh off Tears of the Kingdom as if it's just like some fancy upgraded DLC. Meanwhile, I'm just like, yeah, I just wanted more Breath of the Wild, so this worked out perfectly. The funny thing is, I probably only put in 40 or 50 hours per Zelda game on the Nintendo Switch between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So I know there's people that put in like 400 or 500 hours and they would be a lot more passionate about this game than I am, but it still gets number 1 for me. And I think the fact that it is the first 3D Zelda title to outsell the 3D Mario counterpart on the same console is a testament to just how good this game is. Also, I think it's crazy how close Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild's numbers are, which I suppose makes sense because they are the flagship titles for Nintendo's consoles. Well, if you're not counting the multiplayer stuff, or if you're in a worldwide pandemic and Animal Crossing New Horizons comes out. But regardless, it's been fun to go through this list, and it's interesting to consider the success of each console when you consider the launch titles that dropped with it. And I can only imagine how phenomenal the Switch 2 is going to sell, because everybody will want to play Welcome Tour.